it's Monday, which means another Mock Draft Monday here on the channel. This one will be a little bit more traditional. However, next week, things are going to get crazy. Might bring back the wheel for the mock drafts, forcing us to be more creative, taking some more risks, and forcing us to make uncomfortable, away from the chalk picks. That's how the actual NFL draft ends up playing out every year. You can just see what the experts are saying, and then, this team will never do that, or they are 100% doing this. It just doesn't play out that way. So spinning a wheel, creating some randomness, but still within the realm of possibility, get some interesting results. So that will be next week. Make sure you're subscribed if you're interested in that. But today we're going to start with the Titans at number 1. I think they have a number of different options, and the number's probably 2. It's really going to be probably Abdul Carter or Cam Ward. Do they want to go with a QB because they're at number 1? Cam Ward seems like he's going to be the first off the board with his upside. Or maybe they're not enamored by the quarterbacks because it's really just not a very good quarterback class, and they just take the best player in the draft at a premium position, and that's going to be Penn State's Abdul Carter. And I think that's what we're going to do today. I still think there's a really good chance that they go quarterback. It's the most valuable position in football. You're picking at number 1 overall. How often are you going to be this high in the draft? Even if you think the Titans are just terrible, they had some bad luck, and they had some winnable games that they didn't win, and that's how you end up being at the number 1 overall pick. I know they have flaws, obviously. They're picking at number 1 for a reason, but they might just say, hey, we're at number 1. We like this quarterback enough, and if we can develop him, it's going to be more valuable than anything else we can take at this spot. So, I mean, there's a really good argument to take someone like Cam Ward there, but they might just not do it. There are reports out that the Titans and the Browns are really looking away from QB regardless of what's there, and that could lead the Browns to go with Travis Hunter from Colorado at number 2. Arguably the best player in the draft. Does not play necessarily a super premium top tier position like QB, offensive tackle, or edge, or even anywhere on the defensive line, right? But has that value as a lockdown potential CB1 or a big-time, big-play receiver, maybe a little bit of both. He's such an incredible athlete, great player, and I think certainly in play to be one of these first 3 picks in the draft. I really don't think he falls below 5. I do think there's a chance he falls to 5, but it's hard for me to imagine he goes lower than that in a draft that's really lacking a lot of top-tier talent. There are not a lot of lock first-round guys that would go, this is a first-round player in any other draft. No matter what, they're a first-round talent. Not really. There are like maybe about 10 true first-round talents in this draft, maybe a little bit more. But you got 32 picks in the first round for a reason. You're going to see, 32 first-rounders, provided that there's not another weird tampering situation like you had with the Dolphins a couple years back. Anyway, Travis Hunter, obviously we know what he can do. Heisman winner, Biletnikoff Award winner. Could have honestly won the Thorpe Award if not for Texas legend Jahdae Barron, hook 'em horns. And then we'll get to number 3. It's New York Giants. Giants, desperate for a quarterback, and the quarterbacks have fallen right into their lap. Really, you get your choice of either really Shedeur Sanders or the higher upside pick in Cam Ward. And I think for that reason, you're going to end up seeing Cam Ward go a little bit higher here. That's not to say that that's the case all the time. Like Jalen Milroe obviously has higher upside than, I guess, even a guy like Shedeur Sanders. He's just a way better athlete with a better arm, but is kind of missing everything else that makes up a quarterback. And everything else is really important at QB. You got to be accurate. You got to be smart. And someone like Shedeur Sanders is very accurate, is smart, needs to not hold on to the football maybe for so long, but the offensive line really didn't do him any help. He was under pressure a lot too. It's an interesting situation, but I do see a world where Sanders goes off the board before Cam Ward, just not today. We're going to go Cam Ward to the Giants. I think Joe Shane, GM of the Giants, Brian Daboll, they're kind of at the end of the line there. They've got to start winning now. Cam Ward is the high upside take, but maybe it extends you a little bit. Maybe it gives you a little bit more life. So we're going to go Cam Ward today. Again, if you can take the first QB off the board and you need a quarterback, it's going to be surprising to see teams pass on those guys, even though they're not what we're used to seeing in terms of the top quarterbacks that we see in the draft every year. Like if you look back to the last year's quarterback class with Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, not in that order. I don't think Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders go ahead of any of those guys. So, Bo Nix in that conversation as well probably still goes ahead of Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, right? So this QB class, you're looking at QB7, QB6 maybe from a year ago, like depending on if you're talking about Ward, Sanders. So it's not great, but some teams are going to be desperate to take the most valuable position, and it's going to be Cam Ward today for the New York Giants. And then at number 4, typically what happens for me is one of Carter or Hunter gets available and is the pick there at number 4. It's often Travis Hunter, right? Doesn't always happen that way. The Giants end up going with Travis Hunter in a lot of my mock drafts, but the Patriots, I think, have a chance to take Will Campbell here. Not sure T-Mac's going to go quite this early. Will Campbell's a situation of just take the best offensive lineman in the draft. You need help really all over, specifically at tackle, maybe more than anything else. But you really do need help all over. Maybe just get the best 5 and throw them out there. I think that's what Will Campbell lets you do. Obviously has been a premier left tackle in college football for the past couple years at LSU, but profiles really well as a guard at the next level. And it'll be interesting to see how he's announced on draft night and then what the plan for him is in the NFL. Some guys think he can stick at tackle. Some think he's better at guard and probably can't play tackle in the NFL. There are varying opinions depending on who you talk to, but what is not an opinion is that the Patriots need offensive line help. Will Campbell is the pick here at 4. Is it a bit early for him? Yeah, probably. But if he's the best offensive lineman in the draft for a team that desperately needs offensive line help in a range where they also could use some playmakers, and Tetairoa McMillan not exactly worth it at number 4. He could go at 5, 6. He could go at 4, right? But I think there's a more likely than not chance that the Patriots pass on him at number 4. We'll have to see. There's a lot of time. NFL Combine coming up. Should have a video coming out maybe tomorrow. And if Underdog throws out some different player props you can take, I'll have those out on Twitter as well, at Bengal YouTube, link down in the description. I'll probably have Underdog linked down in the description as well. You can use code Bengal on Underdog. I think it's the best place to play daily fantasy sports, period. No, not everybody's into it, but if you play responsibly and don't chase your losses, it can be fun. As long as you play responsibly, it can be quite addictive, so be careful. But at number 5, have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Going Mason Graham here. This has been kind of the chalk pick for me. I just think he's one of the best players in the draft. He's available at 5. It's a position of need for Jacksonville. And what are you really going to take at this range? Of the true blue chip players, you're kind of starting to run out, right? And even Will Johnson with his medical stuff, and potentially we'll see if he even runs at the Combine, he might not be looking like such an elite prospect anymore. Malachi Stark's 2024 tape was not nearly as good as it was in 2023. So you're starting to thin with the true blue chip players. There really might only be 3. Might be Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham at this point. So if you can get Mason Graham at 5, I think it makes a ton of sense for Jacksonville. As we get to the Raiders at 6, we know they need a quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders is here. Just kind of seems like a good fit. Gets to play in kind of a fun system with Chip Kelly making his way to the Raiders. And we know Tom Brady, now his ownership, you'd think that he'd want to work one-on-one with Shedeur Sanders to increase his chance of being successful. We know the connection with Deion Sanders. It feels like a fit, right? If Shedeur Sanders is available at 6, I think there's a decent chance that the Raiders pull the trigger there. Although, what if they wait until day 2 and take Will Howard, who was Chip Kelly's quarterback at Ohio State this past season? At number 7, have the New York Jets. This is one of my more interesting picks of the mock, but I feel good about it, right? This I could see getting some pushback, but we're going to go, and the Jets are a tough team to mock for because they do need quarterback, and there's just not really one that's here. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. I could see them needing help on the edge. You look at what's currently there. You have Jermaine Johnson coming back from injury. I like Will McDonald. You have some pieces, right? But you still need more. You also need help on the interior, and I think that's what Shamar Stewart can help you accomplish. He's over 280 pounds, just under 6'6". He can play inside, he can play outside. I feel like the Jets have needs all over that defensive line. Stewart is one of the biggest risers over this past season. He just has unbelievable movement ability for his size. It's just, I know the production is not where you'd want it to be. And people say, oh, if you can't produce in college, you're not going to be a productive pass rusher in the NFL. And I just really don't think that's necessarily true. I think you look at Danielle Hunter at LSU, what he's become. Not a productive pass rusher in college at all. And yes, there are outliers, right? There are exceptions to every rule. But Danielle Hunter, not productive really at all at LSU, and then becomes the most productive pass rusher in the league almost. Look at Danielle Hunter's numbers when healthy. They're unbelievable if you care about actual sack production. Micah Parsons was not even a true edge at Penn State. Didn't really produce that much. Goes to the NFL, one of the more productive pass rushers in the NFL. Trayvon Walker was the number 1 overall pick because of upside. Didn't really do a ton as a rookie. We knew he could defend the run, and then has posted double-digit sacks the past 2 seasons. Year 2 was maybe more of cleaning up, and then year 3 this past year was actually pretty good. He was top 20 in the league in pressures. He was productive. It takes time for a lot of these guys to develop, but when they do, you have an elite player. I think Stewart gives you flexibility across the front. And for the Jets, they take a shot on a really high potential player. If you watch Shamar Stewart for a minute, it's pretty easy to tell that this guy is just different. I think he will be productive in the NFL. You'd like to see him go to the right scheme, be used in the right way. But I think there are going to be a number of different ways to do that, as he has scheme versatility and flexibility with his size and super athletic ability. At number 8, have the Carolina Panthers. We're going to go Tetairoa McMillan with this pick. I often go defensive line or something in the front 7 if we include Jalen Walker for the Carolina Panthers. We know their defense is atrocious, but I also could see a world where you continue to build around Bryce Young, build that offense up, and Tetairoa McMillan, of course, one of the best receivers in this draft. He's got a chance to go top 10, and the Panthers need guys that can catch the football. You could use some size, some guys that can get open. That receiver room definitely leaves a lot to be desired, but Tetairoa McMillan gives Bryce Young a really big target to utilize, can work down the field, can work in the intermediate areas after the catch. Really, really nice player. You definitely see him going top 10, and the Panthers kind of double down on offense here as they continue to build around Bryce Young. At number 9, have the New Orleans Saints. So typically in all my mock drafts this year, Dennis Allen was still in charge, right? He has a specific type of defensive lineman that he likes. Off the edge, you kind of got to be at least 260 pounds, like at least, bare minimum. He likes the guys built like Shamar Stewart, built like Mykel Williams, right? Built like Nick Scorton, Landon Jackson even. You know, that type of build. Even Jack Sawyer is 260 pounds. He's at that bottom end of that. Typically hasn't been one for like a James Pierce or a Mike Green or a Donovan Ezeraku, these guys in the 240 to 255 range. However, things have changed. Brandon Staley is the new defensive coordinator there in New Orleans, and he's got a specific type of edge rusher that he likes. It's a more athletic guy. It's someone with burst off the edge, someone that can be explosive. You're talking about like a Khalil Mack type player, right? And for someone that I think has a pretty good chance to go inside the top 10, a high upside, super athletic player, it's Georgia's Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker is about 245, 250 pounds maybe. Only 6'2", but has flashed some serious potential off the edge for the Bulldogs this past season. Depending on who you talk to, this is a top 5 or 10 player in the entire draft. You get him at number 9 here. You have needs on the defensive line, need to improve that pass rush. Jalen Walker, I think, absolutely helps you do that. Really considered, helping out the offense in this range, whether that would be Ashton Genty, even Luther Burden, something on the offensive line. But Jalen Walker ended up making a ton of sense here, and I think he's a really good fit for the new system under former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley. At number 10, have the Chicago Bears. I'll get pushed back for this one. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm going Ashton Genty. I know running back is not exactly the biggest need for the Bears, but you have Will Campbell off the board. You're already seeing a number of defensive linemen go off the board. Ben Johnson, new head coach, of course, of the Chicago Bears, has seen what a dynamic running back can do. And I think it's going to be tough to pass on a guy like Ashton Genty there if he's available at number 10. And he might not even be available. This is someone that could go, I think, as early as 6 to the Raiders. has a chance to go to the Saints at number 9, and I think the Bears just may pull the trigger. You have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs there in Detroit. Ben Johnson was able to utilize both of those guys, create an awesome running game. And I know you need a good offensive line to help out the running back and make some of those things possible. I think in round 2, you have 2 picks pretty high in the draft at like 41 and 39 maybe, somewhere, something like that. You can take offensive line in that range. There are going to be some good players available. You're not really going to find Ashton Genty down the board in the second round. There are good running backs likely to be available in the second round. You might see Amarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson, maybe even Travion Henderson go in round 1. But you're going to be able to find some good running backs in round 2. I love this group. Like, these running backs are phenomenal. Jaden Blue has the home run potential. Devin Neal's a great back. I can't talk about everyone. I really like DJ Giddens. Rashard Smith has big play potential. I think if you want some speed guys, Bashal Tootin and Marcus Yarns. Check out Marcus Yarns. He has some real speed. I think ripped off like a 70-yard run against Ohio State. He is, or maybe it was Penn State, something in the Big Ten. I can't quite remember the play, but it was like a 70-yard breakaway run earlier in the year. And he's got some real speed. Could be a guy to watch at the NFL Combine. There might even be a video coming out on my channel about that. But there are some awesome running backs down the board. You could just look to go in that range. But I don't think the Bears need another running back by committee type back. If you can take an Ashton Genty that can be the focal point, you already have the complementary backs, like Roschon Johnson there. I don't think you need to go that direction. I think the Bears taking a running back somewhere day 2 is probably not really the best choice. But on day 2, you can go O-line, D-line, double up on O-line. Genty here at number 10 seems like a vanity type pick, something you don't necessarily need, but it looks pretty. I think he's going to really help out the offense. He's a guy that breaks every tackle. He's an unbelievable player, and that takes some of the heat off of Caleb Williams. I know it's a whole running back, but it's not just a running back. This is one of the blue chip players in this draft. I know he plays a not premium position, but you're probably still going to see Tyler Warren go really high in the draft, and he's a worse overall prospect than Ashton Genty at also a not so valuable position at tight end if we're going to talk about everything in the grand scheme of things. Sometimes you just got to take a good player and it works out. Look at Jahmyr Gibbs going at number 12 to the Detroit Lions. Do you think they would change anything there? Unlikely. At number 11, have the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going Walter Nolan with this pick. Nolan is another fast riser here in this draft season, and there's a lot to like. Former top recruit, incredibly explosive, twitchy on the interior, can rush the passer, and it's also a really good fit for the 49ers defense. Maybe losing Javon Hargrave, Walter Nolan comes in and offers you a ton of pass rush upside on the interior of that defensive line, and that's a place where they need a lot of help. Nolan, just because of his upside, athletic ability, overall size, he's probably someone that's really solidifying his spot in the top 15. He goes out and has a good combine. I think you're going to see a lot of people start talking about him. If you got a 10-yard split somewhere, even close to like 165, you're going to be in a pretty good spot there. And he's got that type of twitchiness that's crazy for an interior defensive lineman to be around 1.6, but we'll see. We'll see. That's not exactly a projection. It's just a statement. We'll see what happens with that. As we get to the Dallas Cowboys at number 12, going with Kelvin Banks here. Zach Martin just retired. It's a Hall of Fame right guard, one of the best to ever do it. And you already kind of needed help on the offensive line anyway, whether that was at tackle or guard, depending on how you wanted to move guys around. But Kelvin Banks maybe gives you an option for a little bit of both. Banks could play left tackle. Tyler Smith stays at left guard, where he's one of the best in the league. And then you have Tyler Guyton moving over to right tackle. Maybe in this scenario, Guyton stays at left tackle, Tyler Smith left guard, which is pretty much always going to be the case. I guess he's got a chance to move to tackle, but you got Banks here, can play right guard, replace Zach Martin. Big shoes to fill. And then I think Terrence Steele sticks at right tackle. You got a number of different ways you can go about this, but I think offensive line is certainly a huge need now. And you take the potentially versatile Kelvin Banks. Definitely, we know he's an elite college left tackle that, again, projects potentially to slide inside to guard. But you got some flexibility here depending on what you want to do if you are the Dallas Cowboys. At 13, going with another versatile, potentially offensive lineman. I say potentially because he's a college right tackle. Great tape at Mizzou, but potentially could slide inside the guard. He's only like 6'3", but the arm should be about 34 inches. That's good enough to stay at tackle. That's kind of like the baseline, right? So he's got a chance to stick a tackle, which could work for the Dolphins. Their guard situation really at both spots is not very good. So also a chance he slides inside to play one of those positions. But I like taking some of these tackles that project to be guards at guard. They're usually better athletes, and if there's an injury at tackle, they have the ability to move outside and play that. I think that's a little bit more valuable personally than just a true guard only, like a Tyler Booker, right? So that's just my take on it. I think Membu ends up going inside the top, I'll say first half of the first round. We shall see. At 14, man, I'm liking this fit lately. This guy could end up going inside the top 10, depending on how the combine goes. He's going to have elite agility testing. He's quick as hell. How's the long speed going to be? That's kind of the biggest question mark right now with Will Johnson, other than the medical stuff. He falls to 14. He probably ends up going earlier than this, but we know the Colts need help on defense, and this is a boundary CB1 type potential guy in Will Johnson. He's a great player, and I like him there to Indianapolis. They get some size, and we'll see what the testing looks like. The agility should be quite good. We'll see about the long speed in the 40. If he's sub 4.5, I think he's back easily in the top 10 conversations, which it sounds crazy, but CB is one of those positions where you've got to be able to keep up with speed at receiver. At number 15, it's another riser in draft season. It's Mike Green. He's got fantastic tape. He's a little bit undersized, but at the Senior Bowl was a little over 250. I think that's going to play. He's got extreme explosiveness, another guy that I expect to test pretty well. I don't know if he's going to be a 40-yard dash guy where he comes out and, runs in the 4.5s. I think there's a potential chance that happens, but I do think his 10-yard split's going to be crazy. I think if you watch him, the thing that stands out the most is his burst off the line. He's explosive. He's twitchy. I think he's going to be in that 1.59, 1.6 range. And if you look at the history of successful edge rushers, what their 40-yard dash times were or whatever, but what their 10-yard split is within the 40-yard dash, if you can get to 1.59 or 1.6, you start to look at some of the more elite guys in the league. And I think Green's got that type of explosiveness. I think he's going to be close to 1.6 in the 10-yard split. It's going to be really, really interesting. I think that could punch his ticket inside the first half of the first round, even with shorter arms. It's not necessarily the way he wins. I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. Great leverage in the run game. Love Mike Green as a player. The Falcons need to upgrade their pass rush. And so do the Cardinals. We're going to take a shot on the uber athletic Mykel Williams from Georgia. Played banged up this season. Didn't really get to showcase his full potential. We saw flashes of it, especially against Texas. Cardinals could use more on the edge. Williams has really, really good size, and I think is athletic enough to be even an outside linebacker, potentially in 3-4, depending on what team wants to take him, right? So Cardinals, I think, are a good fit overall. He can be that strong side defensive end and be a big-time player. I know you have Darius Robinson in there. I don't think that stops you from taking Mykel Williams at all. As we get to the Bengals at 17, another team that really needs help on defense, and we're going to give them that help. I think they could use a lot more size on the defensive line, and it's tough to find more size than Michigan's Kenneth Grant. Why is this a fun fit? Well, he teams up with his former teammate at Michigan in Chris Jenkins, who was a second-round pick by the Bengals last year. Get them playing next to each other again, and Grant has some real crazy potential. I think he's going to test well at the combine as well at 340 pounds. If he can run something sub 5, that'd be very impressive. He supposedly says he's going to run 4.8-ish. I don't know if it's going to be quite that high, but sub 5 at 340 pounds, pretty elite. We'll see if he gets inside that range. Then maybe we're talking about him like Jordan Davis. Not quite to that same level. Davis was a monster, but Grant has big-time potential. He's a good athlete. Got some things to work on from a technical standpoint, like that pad level gets a little bit high, but overall, fun player to watch. His highs, I think, is what you're drafting him for over the lows. At number 18, had the Seattle Seahawks. I like a lot of the different options here. I really do. But in the end, I just think that in terms of the best player available, it's hard to pass on Tyler Warren when Noah Fant is not a long-term fit in Seattle, in my opinion. You do need to upgrade your receiving game, your passing game as a whole, I should say. And with Fant gone, I don't think A.J. Barner stops you from taking Tyler Warren at 18, right? I really don't think so. You might lose Tyler Lockett. I think DK sticking around. We love JSN, but you could use a big-time playmaking tight end that can also block a little bit. I think Tyler Warren is actually a good fit for Seattle, and they're a tough team to mock for because I typically stay away from interior offensive line because John Schneider just has not shown an interest in drafting those guys in the first round. Maybe this is the year that changes. Maybe next week I'm going to have a guard going at number 18 like Tyler Booker. We'll have to see. But Warren is just kind of too good to pass on in that range for a team that I think could use an upgraded tight end and Fant, maybe a cap casualty. At number 19, have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got to upgrade the pass rush. James Pierce is available. There's talk about potential character concerns, maybe that push him out of the first round entirely. Don't know how true that's going to be. All it takes is one team. Pierce has as much pass rush upside as anybody in this draft. Truly. He's an incredible talent. Probably start as a designated pass rusher. Is a really good fit in this Todd Bowles defense. I really like the fit. Denver Broncos at 20. Going with Luther Burden. Think you could definitely afford to take another first-round receiver. And, well, I'd say another. Just a first-round receiver. Burden gives you an option in the slot. He's great after the catch. His ability to get vertical from the slot, too, is actually very impressive. And he can be a weapon in that regard as well. It's often Colston Loveland here for me. I do think it's going to end up being an offensive player. Burden ends up being the fit today as we get to the Steelers at 21. I'm going Jahdae Barron. Hook 'em horns. Love Jahdae. He's such an awesome player. Instinctive. Nose for the football. Aggressive. He just reminds me of a Steeler, right? And I think that he is just going to be a good pro wherever you want to play him. Will he fit as a boundary in the NFL? Is he more of a nickel? Can he move back to safety? I think all of the above. I think this is a Brian Branch type player in a lot of ways. I think the arm length is going to be fairly similar. I think the overall size and maybe lack of top tier explosiveness and athleticism going to be similar, but it's the instincts, it's the playmaking ability that push him into the first round for me. And he goes at number 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Horns up. At number 22, have the LA Chargers. Here, back to the Michigan well, going Colston Loveland. Falls, I say, he's a tight end, but is available at 22. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, national championship connection, but he's a huge upgrade in the passing game. Can get open, can catch the football, is a mismatch. Packers at 23. Josh Simmons is available. I think it's tough to pass on. He's so athletic, so good. Yes, big-time injury. Ended his 2024 season prematurely. But if you look at the Packers, you love Zach Tom at right guard. You love Elton Jenkins. You like the potential of Jordan Morgan long-term. But at left tackle, Rasheed Walker is upgradable. You can really never have enough offensive linemen as it is. But Simmons has a chance to really recover from injury and then be your starting left tackle of the future. Jordan Morgan left guard, maybe Elton Jenkins at center or right guard. Or maybe Jordan Morgan, right guard, Elton Jenkins, left tackle, Zach Tom, or left guard, Zach Tom, right tackle. You've got a bunch of different ways you can mix and match. Rasheed Walker, I think, would be one of the best swing tackles in the league at that point. He's a solid guy, but is he good enough to be an every down type starter? Not necessarily. Zach Tom, great. You could use an upgrade at left tackle on the other side. I think Simmons, if he's available at 23, is one of the best players in this draft. I think he's a top 10 talent. Injury pushes him down to 23. He's in play to be the best tackle in this draft. And you get a Christian Darrisaw type discount there at 23. Remember what the Vikings did after his injury at Virginia Tech. Speaking of the Vikings, here they are at 24. Could use some offensive line help. I'm going to go with Gray Zabel. Had a big Senior Bowl. And we know the Vikings have really a need to upgrade all over the interior offensive line. That's not necessarily only guard. I think center is in play as well long term. Zabel definitely projects inside. So if you're muted here and you're not listening to me, you skip to the pick. I'm going to highlight guard because he's not a tackle. He's a guard or maybe even a center. Short arms, but very good tape at North Dakota State. You'd hope so, of a potential first-round guy, and then tore up the Senior Bowl. Great player, as we're going to see another offensive lineman go off the board here to the Houston Texans at 25. It's another team that needs to upgrade their interior O-line, and Tyler Booker just makes a ton of sense there at 25 if he's available. Got to protect C.J. Stroud. Finally, we get a good interior offensive lineman available to the Texans. It's not all the time that it happens. Usually I go Emeka Ibuka there lately. And I think that's a good pick as well, but Booker ends up being the pick today. Maybe a wide receiver in free agency. We'll see what the Texans opt to do. But they've had some significant injuries that will definitely impact that passing attack if they don't do anything. But Tyler Booker is the pick today. At number 26, offensive line is a need. Receivers a need. You could go Ibuka here. That's actually a pretty good fit. I like Matthew Golden as well. However, to me, Jahad Campbell's starting to really stick out like a sore thumb. I think he's a fit at 19, at 18, at 17, at 15. Like, I think Jahad Campbell's going to go in the first round. And I think the Rams have really missed Ernest Jones ever since they traded him away. They've really, invested in the defense. Their front seven's looking better and better and better, especially that D-line. But why not get a super athletic linebacker in the back end, that second level, that can take advantage of having a really good defensive line in front of him? Jahad Campbell, go chase the ball, make plays. Super athletic player again. There are a lot of really good athletes in this class. Jahad Campbell, certainly one with super high upside as someone that can play off the ball, go sideline to sideline, and has pass rush upside, especially as a blitzer from the interior, from the inside. Not necessarily off the edge, but he can do that. Recruited as a 5-star edge rusher to Alabama. Got a ton of potential. I think for the Rams, I often go tackle, sometimes corner. I think Jahad Campbell's a pretty fun fit as we get to the Ravens at 27. Had a down 2024, falls in the draft as a result. But the versatility of Malachi Starks and the potential of Malachi Starks is ridiculous. He's a high IQ, instinctive guy that is apparently a great leader, works hard, feels like a Raven. They have him fall to them in the draft, similarly to the way Kyle Hamilton did. That's worked out pretty well. Malachi Starks has huge potential and gives you a ton of versatility in the back end. Seems like a no-brainer pickup there for the Ravens. Yes, maybe you want to upgrade, the offensive line, get another weapon in there for Lamar Jackson, could go somewhere on the D-line, but Malachi Starks just ends up being too good to pass on. As we get to the Lions at 28, going with Nick Scorton. I don't know that he's a lock first-round pick, but I think the Lions are going to value his size. Might even ask him to shed a couple pounds. He was just a little bit more productive at Purdue when he was a little bit lighter. But he was super productive at Purdue, had a bit of a down year at A&M, but has a history of production. He's got good size. You got to upgrade that pass rush. I think Nick Scorton is definitely a good fit there for Detroit at 28. At 29, have the Washington Commanders going with Emeka Egbuka. It's another weapon for Jaden Daniels. I certainly think that's in play. He's a really, really good receiver, just polished, does everything really well. I think he's probably going to make an impact from the slot. Could be a Z as well. At number 30, have the Buffalo Bills going with Derek Harmon from Oregon. I think you could upgrade that interior defensive line. Getting a guy like Harmon that's a really good pass rusher that was so productive at Oregon was such a big reason why their pass rush was so good in 2024. I think he's certainly a guy that could get into the first round. He's just a solid player. At number 31, we know the Chiefs absolutely need to upgrade their offensive line. Josh Connerly is available. I think he's probably going to be a first-round pick. Doesn't probably get out of the top 35 picks. Goes here to the Kansas City Chiefs. Back-to-back Oregon players, back-to-back Alabama players here. As we go back-to-back here is kind of the theme of the 20s. It's happened twice, I guess. Is that a theme? At number 32, gonna probably a pretty fun pick in here for the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like the idea of Darius Alexander. You're losing Milton Williams, and that's Darius Alexander's role that he's going to come and play. 6'4", over 300 pounds, long arms, explosive athlete that can play off the edge as well. I think it's a dream for the Philadelphia Eagles. You get a versatile defensive lineman. This is your Milton Williams replacement, plain and simple. You're going to see Josh Sweat leaving as well, maybe. You're going to see Milton Williams. Those guys are Arizona Cardinals. It's a lock. Darius Alexander ends up being the replacement. That's the first-round mock draft. Made some interesting picks in this one, but I like Jahad Campbell. I like Darius Alexander. I think these are really good fits. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I think Jalen Walker to the Saints is interesting with their new defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley. Shamar Stewart to the Jets seems high, but his upside is ridiculous, and I think there's a chance he goes top 10. That's the mock draft. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.